whatever it is, there's some objective. So the thing is, I can think about it from my perspective of saying, oh, I want to communicate this. But you got to think about the other person. In fact, before you speak, you should think about the other person. What does the other person want? What is the other person seeking here? How can I express this in a way that is useful to them? And if I start from the standpoint of, we're going to have this conversation, what is it that that person wants out of this conversation? I mean, I might not know it. Maybe I could ask them. That's a good way too. But also I should kind of be thinking and focusing upon them, because then when I speak, I'm addressing that, at least what I think it is. And then as we go forward, I can adjust. But it isn't just about me expressing what I want, because that's not effective communication.
G'day team, welcome to the Feel Good Blueprint and episode 6 of Iso-Intellect interviews. Now in this episode I get to speak with Tim Slattery. Now Tim, originally from the United States, now resides in London and is retired, but at the moment he is the president of the London Athenian Toastmasters, a public speaking group that we both attend, which we'll go into detail a bit later. Tim, originally through his career, was a lawyer, and then he moved on to lead scores of people through technology projects. Tim and I discussed the nuances, frustrations and challenges that come with meeting virtually, which we're all doing at the moment. And ironically, we do it on a Zoom call. However, Tim's got some great insights and some recommendations for how we can do this and cope with it a bit better. If you're finding any of this content interesting, inspirational, you know anyone that needs to hear or see it, please do consider liking, subscribing or following at the Feel Good Blueprint. The link's in the bio. Join Team Feel Good. Here I am, here with Mr. Tim Slattery. Welcome to the Feel Good Blueprint.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Tim, I'm really grateful for having you on the show. I know you through a very special group, actually, one that I've been doing for the last few months, which is the Toastmasters group for the London Athenians, and you're the president. Tim, tell us a bit about yourself and also what you've been up to most recently.
Okay, let's see about myself. I'm let's see. I'm American, as you can tell from my accent, but I was born in Chicago, Illinois. To a big family. I'm the middle of 7 kids. I'm still very close to all my brothers and sisters, and I have 2 children of my own. Adult children. I'm married, wife. We've got coming up to 40 years here now, married. Wow. And yeah, that's and what I'm doing now. Let's see. Well, my career was sort of in law and technology, and right now I'm actually retired. I live in London, and for the last 3 years, my wife teaches at an international school, but I'm actually retired. So I've been involved in Toastmasters and some other things here.
Fantastic. Very good. And when I joined Toastmasters a few months ago, I'd been aware of what Toastmasters was for some time, but I'd never really dove into it. And it's just a great group that we have there of people. And could you be able to tell us a bit more about the Toastmasters group and really what Toastmasters is for anyone that's not sure what it is?
Yeah, it's really amazing. Well, Toastmasters generally it's an organization that's been around since the 1920s, which was it was created as part of a self-help sort of movement, right, of people to come together and teach and work together on becoming better speakers, more effective public speakers. And and so we have a group. One of these groups, there's like many thousands of these clubs around the world, and one of them is the one Simon and I are in. You and I are in, which is it meets once a week, and a bunch of people. Usually, there's about 30-40 people in the room, and we take turns speaking in different ways, impromptu and then formal speaking. And then also some people give evaluations too. So it's a very collaborative learning environment, but also really fun. So it's a very positive energy. It's great. I love it. That's why I go for the positive energy of it.
Yeah, I look forward to it every week. It's really exciting, and we've had to take it. Well, you've had to take it from a physical environment. It was actually many weeks ago now. We used to meet in a shared space, and we've had to take that online to essentially video conferencing now. And I think as one of the first clubs that really adapted that quite quickly as well. How have you found having to adapt to that online video conference environment? How have you found that experience?
Well, it's very interesting because I'd say it's gone surprisingly well. First of all, I mean, I must say I've done a lot of sort of video conferencing in my technology work. You know, as a project manager and program manager, I did lots of these, and so I was quite accustomed to them. And it's pretty clear that many of the sort of professional people in our some of them are in digital professions in our club. And so for them, it was pretty easy to transition to that. But for many, they're not accustomed to it at all. And or they had very little exposure to it, didn't really know how to do it. And so we kind of wondered how difficult is it going to be. But people adapted surprisingly well. And there's still some issues. And one of the things I'd say the toughest thing is, you know, when you're in person, you're energized. You're in a group of people. The room is buzzing. You feel stuff. It's very multi-sensory, right? And so it's more interesting. It's more engaging inherently. But this particular, you know, two-dimensional sort of screen that we're looking at, you know, it's illusion, and it's hard to sit here for 2 hours, whereas in person, it's kind of invigorating to sit there for 2 hours. Afterwards, you want to go down to the bar and have a drink, keep it going. But not with, you know, at 7 o'clock at night when people have Zoom meetings all day, it's hard for them to sit there for 2 hours. And amazingly, people have. But we could talk more about that.
Yeah, of course. And one thing we didn't really touch on too much was around your background, of course, which is very much around the technological aspect and how people integrate with that, with the project piece.
Yes.
Can you take us through that evolution of your career in working in that, and how you've actually provided that experience for people as well in coaching?
Sure. I started out as a lawyer. I went to law school and became a lawyer in the U.S. in California. I passed the bar, admitted to the bar in California, and I had a long practice. But I won't go into all that. But I did practice for government and as a corporate inside of corporations, and also for a law firm. So I had a different kinds of experience as a lawyer, and then as I got older, I'd always used technology. I kind of adopted technology as a lawyer, and I got interested in that from that standpoint. Not so much from the how it works, but you know, like coding and stuff, but more how you use it to do your work, and how it enables communications. And so anyway, I tended to adopt it early, and I found it interesting and trying to use it. So I kind of gradually moved more and more into a legal practice that you involve technology, the use of technology. So that's how I became then I decided I got to learn project management. So I went to UC Berkeley. I lived in California at the time. And I took a 3-year course in project management and became a project manager at the same time that I was working as a lawyer. But and then I sort of gradually moved into being now I was becoming more and more of a project manager in technology. And really what I worked with was how to enable legal teams to use technology. So I was sort of the intermediary between the engineering team and the users, to try to identify exactly what is needed, what we're trying to automate, what we're trying to systematize, and then design it and deliver it in a way, roll it out. So that's what I did. So I was kind of this intermediary to help to articulate what's needed and then bring it and put it into practice. So that was my evolution. And then I became, that's what I specialized in the last 10 years, doing that. Not practicing law anymore.
Fine,
just
okay.
working with technology teams.
Yeah, and a big part of that,
legal users. Yeah.
And a big part of that is people adopting technology. As you were saying. So there's this adoption of technology that we've seen, people in their houses literally having to adopt technology, whether they're not very advanced in their ability, or perhaps they may be a bit more elderly and not able to use technology as well. And I think that's been a real challenge for a lot of people.
It is.
Yeah. What have you observed with that, especially, for example, with the Toastmasters? Anything else you're doing at the moment using the tech?
Well, I know I did observe, for example, some of the older people in our group, it's been, they were a little reluctant. Some others who are younger are reluctant to use it. And they've told me privately, I've communicated with members who've not been coming to the meetings, and I've just sort of reached out quietly to them to find out, if there's anything we can do. And they have admitted they just, either they're exhausted and in the evening they just can't face another meeting, an online meeting, or they just feel self-conscious about it. Or in one case, one of our members, he just said, look, at what I want, I'm good at doing this. I'm good at having these kind of meetings. They don't intimidate me at all. But standing in front of a live audience, that's very scary for me, and that's why I joined. And so now that you're not doing that in person, I don't need that. So it is a different experience. It's a different sort of way of communicating, and the feeling of it is different. Anyway, so people have had different challenges that they've come, but we just have one of our oldest members just joined the most recent meeting. We had 8 meetings, I think 8 or 9 meetings. And one of our oldest members finally came on. He didn't turn on his video, but he did join the audio, and it was really fun to have him there. He's like in his 80s, so
that's fantastic.
Cool.
Really good. And I think is there some concerns, I guess, around reliance. And you say people are getting exhausted. I can really see that happening. But if this goes on for time, and by the way, I'm very conscious that we're discussing this very issue on this technology. But what's your thoughts around what's happening right now with adoption of this, and what people rely on, and what happens in the future?
Yeah, it's I have mixed feelings about this, because I realize that this technology enables us to meet, right? I mean, it's without this, you and I aren't talking, because we're both locked down and we can't meet. So it's it's the way we can do it, but it's a very different thing than being in person. It just is, like we've alluded to before, and I think it's challenging because of that. I think there's an inherently frustrating element of this, and I think it's largely unconscious, but it's there, and I think it's probably helpful to be aware of it and try to deal with it the best we can, But for example, for me personally, I'm energized by being around people. I just am, and I guess one way of saying that is I'm an extrovert, right? That's one definition of an extrovert. You get energy. I get energy when I'm with people, and so for me, the being in a room full of people, even if I'm listening, even if I'm not speaking, it's still it's electric for me, and I like it. And then it becomes very easy to use all these wonderful capabilities that we were designed to meet and to communicate in that face-to-face personal way. And it's easy. It's really easy. In this setting, it's less satisfying to me, because I don't sense the other person, even the little subtle things like in a room, when you're like, I remember having one time I was having a bad day at work. I had a real problem with somebody in my organization who was really undermining me. I mean, really with, a knife. And I came into the room and I did not behave well. Okay. I can be in the meeting. I had the meeting, but I could tell I was speaking in a way, and you could tell the room was just icy,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and I had brought that into the room. I have to admit, I hate to say it, but you could sense it, you feel it. And we don't feel it here. You can't. And so those subtleties of breathing, you hear sound or no sound in a room can be very,
Yeah.
you feel it. Whereas this thing, everybody, you can only speak at one at a time. I mean, there are some other applications where multiple people can be speaking, but in Zoom, you can't. It's basically just picking up one person at a time. And so something in our Toastmasters that I know you're aware of is that we have this, we clap after someone finishes, and it's great to hear. As a speaker, you just hear this wonderful applause, and it really charges you up. But here now, we can't hear. You can only hear one clapping, and
everyone's muted.
Like if you...
Yeah. It's true. It's true. And Tim, when I did my first icebreaker speech a few weeks ago, and I got to see the first few sessions of Toastmasters in the flesh, and then we had to go to lockdown, and I had to practice my first speech, and I had to prepare my first speech in front of a camera and deliver it in front of a camera. So people don't actually really know how I present in person, and that's a challenge as well, I think. And the applause, there was no applause when I did it. People were clapping on the screen, but you couldn't hear anything. And that for me was, you're right. It's like you don't get the atmosphere at all. And bringing that to a virtual meeting room is really difficult. So have you got some ideas about how we can move into a more of a, I suppose, a real environment, or some solutions for how we can alleviate some of these issues?
Yeah, that's a good question, Simon. I think that there are some things we can do, maybe a few things that have occurred to me. There might be better ideas, but one is one I think is what jumps to mind is listening more. And it's harder because we can't, we listen with our eyes, we listen with our senses too, not just to the words. But I think listening, and in this format, speaking less, that's probably, I have a tendency to go on. So it's hard for me, so I have to work on that. But I think it's good to hold back a little bit, because the time for this experience, everybody's patience is going to be less. It just is, because it's just inherently less engaging, like we said before. So I think if we try to listen and then speak a little more sparingly to enable others to be able to converse as well in this time, I think that can help. I think that's important, because otherwise the meeting gets boring for people and they tune out, and then it's not useful communication experience for the group. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I'd say another thing is probably we have, because we do express ourselves with our face, okay? We express ourselves with our face and with our vocal variety. That's one of the things we work on in Toastmaster. So I think it's important that you really try to, use your face, maybe a little bit more like an actor, does, a little exaggerated maybe, because especially in a Zoom call, when you've got, if it's a small group like this is great because there's just two screens, right? But if you have a big group and you have a lot of little faces, the speaker and the audience members, they can't see your face very well. And so I think if you're a little closer up and also, and then also exaggerate a bit your expressions when you're pleased or when you're surprised or when you're whatever, and not really to faking it, but just allow yourself to really express yourself. I think that's probably helpful to emulate and to get it through this medium, because we're limited in how we can do it. So got to push a little harder.
Yeah, they're great suggestions, Tim. I think to your first point, it is really difficult, I think, because what we do in Toastmasters is people have allocated times to speak, and it is quite, for good reasons, regimented in terms of time frames.
Yes.
So it's less of a dialogue, and it's more of a collection of monologues. However,
Yes.
there is a conversation in that there's feedback given. But with a dialogue like we're having, it's difficult to interject or to add points or to have more of a dialogue, because you are missing those cues. So I think that first suggestion you gave is great, and the second one around using the face a lot more, I really agree with that, and I think it makes me think about the hands, because often they're out of frame, and we rely on the hands so much,
Yes.
don't we, to understand what's going on.
We do.
And even in a room where we normally be in a room, someone might have their hand where it would normally be out of frame in this picture. They might be a bit nervous about wanting to make a point, and they're kind of trying to make an action to interject or to be part of a dialogue. And there are all these little cues, like you said, we're perfectly designed for a real visceral environment. And using the face, I think, is really good, because that's what we're looking for now on these screens, is more of that, because it's so easy to leave the hands out of the frame. Yeah. It's really difficult practice. And we've seen a lot of guys in the Toastmasters, they're standing up to present, which I think is fantastic. And that's what I did for my speech, and I think it's an essential thing. But it's just so easy to sit here and have the screen in front of you.
Yeah. I think one other thing, which is more general, it's beyond just this limitation of this, but it's probably a good idea to operate under the assumption that other people listening don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They don't understand you. And so as a result, we have to be more careful about ensuring that people understand. And so the kind of thing where you check in with, the basic things where you sort of check in, say it, check in and make sure someone understands it, give them a chance to give feedback so that you can confirm that before you move on. Because if you assume that you've said it and therefore everybody understands it, you got to remember, we're only communicating here with maybe, 60% of our capability, maybe less, maybe less. And so it's quite possible that they didn't get it. And so you need to be a little bit careful about that, a little less ambitious as to how much you're going to cover.
Mm-hmm.
and then also just checking in and being participative. That's the other thing. People don't want to sit here forever just listening and looking fixed at the screen. If you can interact with questions and answers, like this conversation is great because it's fun going back and forth. But a lot of times as a spectator in a larger meeting, you're just watching, and that's hard work.
It's hard work for the larger groups. It is. And I've seen that. And I'm starting to see a lot of it uploaded to YouTube, is these videos of, you've got multiple people on a screen, and you've got people talking, and it's just a lot to take in. Instead of being able to see a crowd, you've just got all these boxes of faces interacting, and it's just really not a normal thing. Great. There's some really good suggestions. Thank you, Tim.
Sure.
And then I think for me, I originally wanted to reach out to you because I'm really intrigued by the communication and speaking part, which we have discussed about how that's affected on screen. But what do you think in general is a great way to get points across, to communicate? What are some of the key things you have learned from Toastmasters in that regard?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you one from Toastmasters, and then I'll tell you one from my general background.
Yeah.
One from Toastmasters is that your personal, being personal about yourself and your own personal story is often very engaging and effective. And what I mean by that is not bragging about oneself, but instead just talking about one's own, perspective. Because let's face it, we don't understand what other people's perspectives are. I mean, people think we do, but we don't. And so when we hear somebody really clearly articulate that, it's engaging, and it's very authentic, and you can get your point across. So if you tell a story about something that you're trying to get a message across, so you tell a story from your real past or something that close to your real past, that it conveys that, then it's much more powerful than just to say it, right? And so I think that's one thing. And the other thing then is more sort of general principle, and that is you have to think about the other person. I mean, the communication is just not me saying what I want to get across. Communication is when somebody, it's not completed then. It's just like, it's only it's only part of the process. The other process is the person decodes and interprets and understands what you're saying, and optimally does something. I mean, either they're going to act, they're going to agree with you, if that's what you're seeking agreement, you're seeking someone's cooperation, you're seeking somebody's, I mean, even when you're trying to inform someone, why are you trying to inform them? There's something that you want, and it's not a control thing, but it's like we're acting in space, and we're trying to deal with other people, and we want something. Maybe we just want appreciation. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But whatever it is, there's some objective. So the thing is, I can think about it from my perspective of saying, oh, I want to communicate this. But you got to think about the other person. In fact, before you speak, you should think about the other person. What does the other person want? What is the other person seeking here? How can I express this in a way that is useful to them? And if I start from the standpoint of, we're going to have this conversation, what is it that person wants out of this conversation? I mean, I might not know it. Maybe I could ask them. That's a good way too. But also I should kind of be thinking and focusing upon them, because then when I speak, I'm addressing that, at least what I think it is. And then as we go forward, I can adjust. But it isn't just about me expressing what I want, because that's not effective communication. It's not. So I'd say those two things. You want to speak from your own experience and truth, so to speak, and then also to really approach it from the standpoint of the other person or the audience.
Very, very useful feedback. Very good. And we talk a lot about leadership as well, which I know, again, like communication can be a nebulous term. And there's so much around leadership that we could discuss. But I wanted to ask you, Tim, what kind of leadership have you seen during this time that's really grabbed you, or anything you've noticed around leadership that's really sort of captivated you?
Yeah. Well, the leadership that we're seeing on television has been, I'm not going to go there because this is supposed to be
It's fine. No, look, if we need to go there, but if we don't, I can understand.
But I'll tell you that the leadership that I have seen, I'm involved in a local political party here, okay? And I've been amazed at some of the initiatives that some of the people have done in my group. They've gone out and really tried to reach out to people, organizing. One of the guys in the group, I'm an officer in this local party, okay, here out in Uxbridge. And so one of the guys, several of them they're just amazing. They immediately got out and got organized with food banks, organizing like mental health group sessions where we can talk about problems and get information out to people where they can go get help, and other sort of calling people who are over 70 to make sure they're okay. I mean, these people, it's amazing to me. And it's leadership in the sense of, okay, you see a problem, bang, you start doing it, you start making things happen. It's not just talking about it, it's doing it. And it's a lot of times, like this one guy that I'm thinking of who's been a real force. He's a lot of times it's just him out there. He's pushing it himself. He's trying to do it himself. And then others join in because they see him doing it. I've joined in. I've tried to help him when I can. And so I've been very impressed with that. So you see these kind of acts of leadership, not by people that have official roles. We would wish that they would do a better job of it. But it's individuals who just jump up and do it. And I think that's the most exciting kind of leadership. And it happens all the time. A lot of times it's not recognized because all this, CEO worship, and people in positions of authority that everybody looks to, like as if, the prime minister is the person who's going to solve all our problems. Well, if you're looking for that, I mean, it's not going to happen. You're going to be disappointed. It's people like my colleague here who's out there organizing stuff for the food bank, collecting.
That's a great story. And it's that grassroots leadership that breeds and continues to multiply to inspire others to do great things. I've heard some really great stories, even from our group. There was essentially the vans that are usually used for distribution of products have been used for distribution of groceries and PPE equipment to people that need them. And there's another great story similar to yours, where a gentleman in the group actually was delivering some equipment and was dropping it to an elderly man, and the elderly man having a conversation, and essentially he just wanted some bread. He just really wanted to have some bread and hadn't had some for some time. There's something that he wanted to get, and the guy from the group actually just went and got that loaf of bread and brought it back to the old guy. Didn't know him, and dropped it off. And that was a small act of kindness, but it meant so much. And it's those sort of things that really are unsung. People just caring about other people as well. Very good. It's a very interesting time at the moment, Tim. And I just thought I'd round up with asking you, is there any advice that you'd give to anyone that might be struggling a little bit at the moment? What they could be doing in order to give themselves some self-leadership?
Yeah. Well, I know people vary in their sort of what energizes them. Like I said before, I'm energized by being around other people. Some are by being by themselves. I think for people like me who are energized with other people, I think it is important. Probably something you can do is go ahead and reach out and talk to other people. It's hard, but you need to do it. If you reach out, you get a little bit more of that energy, and then you can start to put that into action. It's important to do. I guess, yeah. I don't have a golden answer, because it is a difficult time psychologically for a lot of us because of the holding pattern of it. It's like standing in a queue. It's like we're in this giant queue, and we don't know when we're going to get to the front. And so it's kind of, and we don't know. It's like when you're trying to get rush tickets at the theater, or the day tickets, and you don't know for sure if you're going to get a ticket either, but you got to wait. And so it's a long time. It's like we feel powerless. I guess that's what it is. We're spectators. We're being, this is what I feel. I feel like I'm a spectator, at something that's massively bad going on, and I'm relegated to the role of passive spectator. And I think that's very frustrating, especially anybody who wants to express some leadership. So I think maybe acting, first of all, talking to people, and especially being kind to other people, even reaching out to somebody who you haven't talked to for a while, who might appreciate a call. That's a useful act right now. It really is. And it's something that can help, even though it's not solving the problem of coronavirus. Maybe it's helping somebody's loneliness or somebody's feeling of, detachment or alienation from this experience. And that could be helpful. I think that could be quite helpful. So reaching out and talking to somebody who might appreciate that. I'd say so.
Very good advice. Thank you, Tim. That is something I've been trying to do a bit more of as well. So excellent. Tim Slattery, thank you so much for joining me. And it's been really good to speak.
You're very welcome. Pleasant.